Good afternoon, everybody. I guess we shall start off the webinar, and I'll start by thanking everybody who has made the time to be with us this afternoon to come and have a listen to what human rights defenders are facing in terms of digital concerns during this pandemic, and what options they have to continue their work in a safe and secure environment in the digital space. My name is Gloria Madegwa. I work with the Defenders Coalition. I am head of strategic partnerships, and I am with my colleagues. I will I will go straight on and do a brief introduction of each of the panelists that will be in the panel today. I will start with Ahmed. Ahmed Shire works with the Defenders Coalition. He is our ICT officer who brings on board a number of years of digital security training and also is a technologist. And he has been part of ensuring that the Defenders Coalition digital security program has taken off and human rights defenders benefit from digital security training. The next panelist is Samuel Miner, who is also a digital security trainer and a strategist, and is currently working with the Protection International as the African Regional Protection Officer in charge of its IT and digital security. Sam specializes in organizational digital security and human rights digital, and he continues to research for digital security applications and solutions for HRDs in the African continent. And I know right after this meeting, Sam will be able to guide us as to where we can find some of this material that he has been part of, and maybe it might benefit us as we continue with our work. Our next panelist is Mark Chigundu, who is also a technologist at Amnesty International in the Nairobi regional office. He works closely with Amnesty researchers and campaigners, together with local and regional organizations, giving them expert advice and hands-on support on technology and human rights issues, as well as carrying out technical research and analysis about privacy and freedom of expression as it relates to technology within the region. Our final panelist is Cecilia. Cecilia Maundu is a broadcast journalist based here in Nairobi. She's also a specialist in gender digital security training with experience in training women journalists and human rights defenders. She's also a user experience expert and leads training on collecting feedback and evaluates how effective online security tools are. All these are meant to create a holistic approach towards digital security. As you can see, we have a wide range of knowledge that is coming into this discussion, and I hope that we shall be able to gain two or three things, even as we continue with our work during this pandemic and mostly use technology. The reason why the Defenders Coalition thought it would be important to have this discussion right now on the digital security of human rights defenders is that since the pandemic started and at the global level, we have had quite a number of concerns from human rights defenders, and there has been a shift with regard to how people are now doing their work. We depend mostly on the technology, be it in the protection of human rights defenders, be it in monitoring human rights violations. Technology has played a very key role. And the last three months have seen Defenders Coalition receiving a lot of information and receiving a lot of requests and concerns from HRDs just to get an understanding of how best they can use technology, how to ensure that the technology and the tools that they use are respond to their needs. So in this webinar, in the 2 hours that we have, we hope to get to hear what tools human rights defenders can use during this pandemic, how best the tools can give them security as they go through their work, and also just ensuring that they secure communication in the communication that is going on in the communication that they're having together. And also we shall have a brief discussion on physical security and the do's and the don'ts and the basics that people need to ensure they have in place before they continue with their work. Before further ado, I would like to request that if you have, number one, we should all mute our microphones so that we are able to get to hear what the speakers have to say. And if you have a question, kindly, there's the chat box. You can put your question there, and we'll be sure to respond to the questions at the Q&A stage. And also, if you feel like there's more information that you need, you can just raise up your hand. Again, we have the button that is there and it is working, and we shall be able to hear you out. Because we have lost around 15 minutes, I will go straight to the panelists. And first, I will welcome Ahmed Shire, who is going to give us an overview of the challenges and digital threats that human rights defenders are facing during this pandemic, what they have brought forward to the coalition, and then we shall move forward to the other panelists who will try and give insights as to how we can combat some of these threats or how we can deal with them. Thank you very much. And I think, Ahmed, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Gloria, and good afternoon, everyone. I want to talk about different aspects in terms of digital threats or security of human rights they face in Kenya. As we know, the world now is facing unprecedented crisis on COVID-19. The Defenders Coalition has been monitoring and documenting the impact of the pandemic in Kenya. I want to categorize of the threats for 4 threats. One is there's a threat for human rights defenders they face to freedom of expression and access to information. During the first days of curfew in Kenya and in other regions, the implementation of the curfew, some journalists were beaten by police and were reporting on the curfew. There was a limit of access information and expression of the freedom of expression for HRDs in Kenya in terms of and the second thing is also there is a threat surveillance to right of privacy, which basically is have put in place that there's a surveillance threat of human rights defenders are faced in terms of the work they do, especially on some HRDs who live in the coast counties. They have faced for tapping phones and also tracking for their phones and the device they use. And the other thing is cybersecurity, which basically falls under threats, which communication and hacking. I had a discussion today with one of HRDs who lives in Tana River, who works with a case of extrajudicial killing, who has hacked his Twitter and WhatsApp for the end of the last month, along with other HRDs. He has told me he has received an email attachment that contains malware before the Twitter and WhatsApp was hacked. So the HRD was, in terms of cybersecurity threats for one of that case. The other case is communication. And this time, this COVID-19, some HRDs are facing a very critical threat in terms of communication because of the access of internet. Most of the HRDs who live rural area, especially in Kenya, especially on women human rights defenders, they don't have access of internet. So even we had a small survey last week on indigenous people community who live in the forest and other rural area. We asked them if they have access on internet and other communication device they use. So what we have found was most of HRDs who live in the rural area, they have a problem of accessibility of internet. The other thing I want to mention is on cybersecurity, there's a case for password cracking. There's a one HRD who was cracked his email, his password for the beginning of the May. He was not able now to log in his email because of he visited cyber cafe, and then he used a public internet to access his email. Once he came back his place, his email was not working. So there was a concern of in terms of password cracking and also loss of information. The other thing I want to talk about is on cybersecurity is the hacking and malware and other hacking and malware they're facing, especially of HRDs in Kenya and on regional, specifically in terms of when it comes for protection of the computer, especially in this situation. We know we working from home remotely. Most of us, most of the HRDs, they want to have a meeting on online and online platform conferences. So they face some hacking malwares and hacking system, which basically can violate the privacy and the system leaking information for the security. So what I want to talk about is the last is in terms of specifically on surveillance. There was a case in Coast, especially on Mombasa. There was a HRD who was working with a case of extrajudicial killing, who was tapped his phone, and then after that, when he was want to use his phone later, he was suspected there's some issues was on his phone. So what he did was he contacted with some of HRDs who was near to that area, and then they had a conversation about how can they mitigate this immediately. But unfortunately, what happened was all the information on that phone was hacked, and basically what happened was they were not working properly. So I think most of the 4 things I have mentioned for cybersecurity and also surveillance, to right privacy and that internet freedom, access for the internet, and threats for information of expression and access of information. Most of them, I think that's the threats we are facing so far for HRDs in Kenya. And I think in this webinar will be give some solution on how we can mitigate this stress for HRDs. And yeah, that's what right now we have so far reported for.
Thank you very much, Ahmed, for the conclusive and comprehensive threats that human rights defenders are facing. I think I will just bring to light one concern that has been there, especially on the use of social media. Human rights defenders are being targeted on social media. We have had reports from a human rights defender based here in Kenya, where she received a direct threat from a police officer telling her to pull down her posts because she was bringing out issues that are happening here in Nairobi, in the Kariobangi area, where people were evicted unlawfully from their homes. So she was bringing it to light and doing some advocacy work on social media and on Facebook. And out of that post that she did, she received a direct threat that she should pull down whatever she has written on social media, or else she will face the force of the full force of the law. It is an issue that is currently being sorted out, but this is also one platform. Social media is also one platform that we continuously see human rights defenders, journalists being targeted from that area. And I know when Sam will be tackling some of the secure communication that human rights defenders can use, he will give us tips as to how we can prevent some of these things, or if not prevention, how we can better secure ourselves as we are doing online advocacy. So thank you. We shall then move to Mark. Mark will take us through will take us through the basics of secure communication, and just try and highlight to us what are some of the secure communication channels that are available for use for us as human rights defenders, and what people should be thinking about during this COVID-19 pandemic, the different avenues that we have with regard to us ensuring that we are secure as we communicate online. So Mark, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Gloria. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, Mark, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you. So I just wanted to talk about some considerations, especially around how we can work safely at home or securely at home, given the current times that we are in. Just some of the things you should be thinking about. Of course, physical security is very important. As you leave your office and start working from home, you're leaving the comfort of well thought about physical security, because most of the offices usually have a fence or a guard, and it might not be the case at home. So one of the panelists will speak about physical security, but I wanted to just talk to you about some of the things that should be going through your mind as you think about starting to work from home, especially when you're using your computer or your phone. So if you're going to be working from home, you're going to either have an organizational computer or your personal computer. Usually if you have an organizational computer, the IT of the organization will have done some things to make that computer a bit more secure. And if you're just going to be using your personal computer, you might have to take on a lot more work when it comes to your digital security, because it might not be set up right for work. But in any case, if you're working with a computer at home and you're doing work for an organization, you want to make sure that the basic security hygiene has been taken care of. So basically things like having a logon password for that computer, because in the home environment, there might be so many people in your house or your home that you might not want directly to see what you're doing on your computer, or even kids just playing around in your work. So you want to make sure that you have that first barrier of having a logon password on your computer. You want to make sure that the operating system that you're working with is up to date. So currently, most people, of course, use Windows operating systems. So you want to make sure that you're using Windows 10 and not Windows XP or Windows 7, because those ones are pretty much old now and are vulnerable to attack. You also want to make sure that the applications on the computer are up to date. Most of us use so many applications, some of us don't even know some of the applications that are on the phone. But you want to make sure that the applications, at least the ones you use regularly, are up to date or receive updates. Of course, the other thing is the antivirus. You know that the internet is full of viruses that are looking out for computers that are not protected. So having an up-to-date antivirus and a firewall that's turned on is a must for everyone. Some of these settings are usually automatic, and if you have any questions or doubts, you need to talk to the person in charge of your IT in the office or any friends that you have. So that is basically for your computer, but they should be the same things that you should be thinking about on your phone. Phones also have basically the same makeup like a computer, so you need to make sure you have a logon password for your phone, the applications are up to date, and all those things, just to make sure that you're not exposed. And the other thing, because you're working from home, you're going to be using some kind of an internet connection to be able to do your work online. And this, for most people, will be either you're using your phone to get internet on your computer, or you have a router in your home. So because we do not trust the people who are giving us internet, or people who might be able to get between our devices and our internet connections, you want to make sure that your router is set up in a secure way for you to be able to do your work securely. So basically having things like updating the default password for your router, because if your default password is not updated, most of these devices are Huawei devices, or any other company manufacturing these products. They have these default passwords on the internet. So if I know which device you're using, I can actually log into your Wi-Fi and change the Wi-Fi password and basically lock you out of your password. So you want to make sure that the default password has been changed, or usually actually the default password is usually written on the back of the device you're using. So you want to make sure that the password is changed, and you also want to make sure that the firmware is updated. Most of these things might sound very difficult, but if you don't know how to go about this, you can just call your internet service provider and ask them to send you directions on how to update the default password of your Wi-Fi router or your MiFi router. The other thing, of course, then comes to the Wi-Fi itself. You don't want to have an open Wi-Fi at your home, because if someone gets onto that Wi-Fi, they can actually intercept or hack your devices. So you want to make sure that you have a strong Wi-Fi password, and you want to make sure that encryption is turned on for that Wi-Fi connection. Also, if you do not want to, if you have so many people who must access your Wi-Fi connection, usually routers or MiFis have the option to turn on the guest Wi-Fi. So you want to make sure that if you have so many people accessing your Wi-Fi, you don't give them the actual main SSID and password. Just create a different guest Wi-Fi for them. That gives you a bit more protection. So that is basically for your computer and your Wi-Fi connection. The other aspect would be browsing, because most of our work is done on a browser. You're going to be having Zoom calls or logging into email or basically browsing the internet. And there are also so many risks around that. Browsers are very vulnerable to hacking. So you want to make sure that the browser you use is updated, and browsers nowadays are usually updated at least once every week or 2 weeks. So if you're using Chrome or Firefox or Edge, you want to make sure that that browser is always up to date before you start work every morning, if there is an update for that. There are also some plugins that you can make use of to kind of block trackers or ads. We can show that, of course, some people are going to be speaking. Some of the panelists will talk to us about some of the tools we can use to be secure online, but there are a couple of plugins that you can use to make sure that your connections are HTTPS encrypted, that ads are not popping up in your browsers, and that you're not being tracked everywhere you're going online. And of course, one of the most important things at this time is being able to use a VPN. So if you don't have a VPN, at least most organizations are thinking about providing VPNs, because Wi-Fi connections at home are not trusted, or any other connection. Even offices use VPN. So make sure that you have a VPN connection to make sure that most of the information you're communicating back and forth is encrypted. And if all this, if for example you cannot get a VPN, you can basically use the Tor browser, which is an end-to-end encrypted browser, which makes your online work a bit more secure. So the other aspect, of course, we are logging into emails, we are logging onto Facebook, Twitter, because everyone is online now. There are more attacks happening right now. So you want to make sure that your online accounts are safe. And the best way to do that is having a strong password and turning on multi-factor authentication to make sure that accounts are not hacked in. Ahmed was talking about someone whose accounts were being hacked. So if you have multi-factor authentication turned on, you're sure that no one can hack your account. And of course, since devices are at home right now, you want to make sure that the data at rest on the hard disk of your computer is safe. And that is by turning off full disk encryption, just to make sure that if the machine is stolen from your house, the data cannot be accessed. And of course, you need to have a backup plan to make sure that the work that you're working with every day is kind of backed up in case something happens to the computer. Yeah, that's it for now. Gloria?
Wow, thank you very much, Mark, for those insights on very basic hygiene that we should ensure we rally with. And I think just a point to note, most of the things that Mark has described or has taken us through, usually we would feel like these are things that are normal and maybe we ignore. But if we are not careful and if we do not put some of these things into consideration, clearly we shall find ourselves in very difficult situations. In our normal digital security training, what Mark has taken us through usually takes us a whole day, because what we do, we of course do the theory part, but again, we take participants through the practical bit of it. If it is an antivirus that you do not have on your phone or on your computer, we take you through. And I think I will also take this opportunity just to give small highlights. Number one, if you're using your phone and you might not have an antivirus, there are antiviruses which are free. And I would propose that you maybe start with Kaspersky for phone, which is usually free for the first 1 month. And then after that, you get to pay. But there are others which you do not necessarily have to pay. And I know somebody will mention it. And then in terms of internet connection, yes, for those of us who are getting internet connection from different service providers, I hope at the end of this webinar, we shall call them and request them to take us through how we can make our internet connections more secure, so that people do not get into our internet and start using them without our knowledge, or even corrupt them as you continue using them. Mark mentioned something on VPN, and I would request that we note VPN down somewhere. Immediately after all the presentations, this is one area that I would want Mark to again emphasize, and just take the participants through what a VPN is and what VPNs we have that can be important, that can be of good use to us as we are trying to work in the technological world. Please feel free to ask questions on the chat button. I can see questions are coming in. Thank you, Alice. I've seen your question, which shall be responded to. And I've also seen Vincent. We've seen your question. We shall respond to it. On the Q&A bit. Right now, if you will allow me, I would want to ask Sam to take us through secure communication and the tools that are available for use for us as we are diving deep into the technology world, and technology being our new normal. There are some things that we will have to put in place. So Sam, karibu. Asante.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gloria. Good afternoon, everyone. What we've seen during this COVID-19 period is that a lot of people are having to work from home, and the HRDs especially now you still have to do your projects, the work that you are doing with your communities, but you have to do it now remotely. So you're depending so much on technologies that are existing. So perhaps we need to ask ourselves, are we communicating securely? Are we using these technologies as securely as we should? And what kind of risk are we exposing ourselves to at this moment? But the first thing I thought when we discussed this webinar is why then do we need secure communication? I thought that at this moment, there are very many risks inherent in the new normal, as it were, in terms of us working remotely, working from home. As Ahmed has said, some are having to work from cyber cafes to log into their accounts using public computers or shared computers. So what do we need? So there are those kind of risks, and these risks affect if you're working together, you need to share some files. You need to share, let's say, proposals. You need to share reports. You need to share things that the team, information that the team needs to work on. So file sharing is one place where you need to be securing that space. Also, you are doing a lot of emailing because you don't have your regular, you can't jump to the next desk and talk to your colleague. You have to do a lot of emails. And also, like what you're doing right now, you have to do a lot of voice calls, and you also have to do a lot of maybe chatting to discuss issues, to discuss plans, to discuss things that you need to do. All this is happening remotely in your digital devices. So, and apart from that, risk that is the risks that come together with that, which have been occasioned by the way we have to work right now because of the lockdowns and the curfews and everything that has come up because of coronavirus. There's also, and Ahmed has alluded to this, is the risk that is inherent due to the risk has increased because of too many, and Mark also has mentioned this, too many, all of us are actually working from using digital tools to work. So there are, of course, increased opportunistic attacks from just hackers who maybe are out to make a dime or just to prove a point, whatever it is. There's also the risk of increased surveillance. We've heard that people's phones are being tapped. So there's a lot of increased surveillance, and this is targeted to HRDs in many cases. We also have the issue of our own behavior has changed, behavioral change. We have changed how we work. We have changed how we relate to information. Most likely, we are a bit stressed. There is also an issue of being stressed, and therefore we can be negligent or careless, which can result in loss of information or intrusions, or people just intruding into our own accounts and communications because we are careless. Like that person who logged into his accounts in a cyber cafe, they probably left without signing out. So that is probably because they are not in the same space of mind. They are not as comfortable as they were in in the office. So their mental state is probably compromised because of the stress of COVID-19, maybe having to take care of family, having to take care of such, and all the weight of, financial demands are also higher. So we are bound to make mistakes. And that's how even those who do fishing and or fishing, if you want, and maybe account compromising, accounts taking over your social media account, they target because they know right now people are not in their good state. So they're going to follow the behavior and they take advantage of that. So those are the kind of opportunistic attacks that could happen. Also, as Mark has alluded to, we have unsecured networks. We are working with unsecured networks at home. Most of us really cannot know how to do this, and that's why it's very important that you talk to a friend who is a computer savvy, say super user or something, a computer savvy person to help you with setup. There are many. There are those guys in your estate who, in your residential areas, who repair computers. Ask them what to do. You don't have to have them do it for you. You have also friends. You have your IT people in your workplace. Ask them, what do I do to secure my network? Let them help you secure the network. Another thing is also our devices are unsecured. And I think Mark has tried to give us advice on how to secure our devices. So this has also increased the risk of digital security attacks. So we need to look into those. And I think Mark will at some point also upload some guidelines, simple guidelines on how you can secure your devices while you're working at home. So those are this is the kind of background we are coming from when we look at the secure communication as a risk that we need to address during this pandemic. So one of the solutions, which is because of our limited time, that is what I'm going to focus on, is what kind of tools can we use that are more secure, that that improve how we handle our communication, and therefore reducing the risk of intrusions or attacks on the digital space. So when you're looking at tools, you need to consider a few things. When you're looking at the tools or channels that you're going to use, the services you're going to use for communication, you could consider a few factors, and one of which is privacy. How is that tool? How does that tool secure, or rather guarantee your privacy as a HRD, for instance? And well, you need to ask yourself, what if it's an application, let's say on your mobile phone, what kind of information, personal information, is it asking from you, or what when you install it, what kind of information is it going to access from you? So is it a genuine application to help you with communication securely, or is it something that is come to, it's pretending to be something that can help you, while in fact it wants to steal your information? So those are the kind of things to look into, in terms of privacy. And then how do you even sign into that particular application or service or application or solution? You need to find out whether, are you using a password, are you using a PIN, are you using your email, are you using maybe your phone number? Because when you link your phone number to another online account, that means there's that connection that's already established, which means it increases your digital footprint. It also helps in identifying you, because your number has your name, your ID number, and your PIN and whatever, all those things. Your personal identification number in the government, they're all there in your phone number. So how do you sign up for this particular service? So think about that. Maybe someone should mute Donald. there, somebody else. Okay. You need also to look at, I think the hosts can mute somebody. So the other thing you need to look into is security. How secure is this thing and this solution that you have decided to use? For instance, is it end-to-end encrypted? So does it use a good encryption algorithm? Is it end-to-end? So that what we mean by end-to-end is that yeah, the communication between is encrypted on both the source and the destination, and vice versa, and which means that you limit, rather if that communication is intercepted, then it means nothing to the person who has intercepted it, because they cannot actually interpret it or read it at that moment. So that's important. Does that communication channel or solution always require a password? Or once you get in, you are in forever? I mean, do you require a password to sign in every other time? Yes. So, and do they have even the limit as to how many characters you need in your password, or do they just let you just, like type your birthday, or require your year of birth or something? Then, of course, you also have to look at the issue of does it give you the option of two-factor authentication, which means you need two platforms for you to be able to log into that account. For instance, when you have two-factor authentication in your email, you have to sign in with your password, let's say on your browser. Let's say you're using Chrome or Firefox, and then you will be sent a code to your maybe phone by SMS. Then you have to enter the code. So you have to enter those two factors in order to join to log into your email, for instance. And have you activated? Would you like to activate that? You should activate that actually. So those, and then of course there is a question of reliability. The communication channel should be available when you need it. And also perhaps it should work on different platforms, like let's say the operating systems, Windows, Mac, Linux, or your iOS, or the Android platform. So I think when you look at all those, because of the kind of challenges that we face as Africans, we might have to rely mostly on our phones, because computers are expensive. Having a computer also, you need to be able to update it, which costs you a lot of paid mobile internet for you, and mobile internet is expensive. So we might actually rely so much on the mobile phone for our communication. So we need things that work across board. And also affordability. We don't have a lot of money. We all know that. Yeah? So what is the cost of setting it up? What is is it within your budget as a human rights defender? And at the very top, is it free? Yeah, I like free. Free is better than everything else, but it has to be within the good standards in terms of to meet the other standards in terms of privacy, security, and reliability. And there are so many good free things, which I will suggest shortly. And that shortly is actually right now. Yeah, so what channels can we use immediately right now, given the resources that we have, assuming that the resources are actually low, which, I mean, coronavirus, the COVID situation has affected a lot of the projects. They're not going on. You cannot spend money, maybe. You probably don't have the money to spend either. Maybe some of us do not have projects at the moment, but funded projects at the moment, but we need to continue working as a human rights defenders. So importantly, I would not suggest something that you are going to buy. I would suggest something that is free and with a little bit of your own learning, you can be able to implement it. Some of them are actually very easy to implement. It's straightforward. It's plug and play, as it were. So we'll look at what are then the channels and solutions that we can look into at this moment to be able to help us navigate this pandemic without with minimum damage to our information and our well-being. I would say the first things you could look at is chat and call. Chatting, like getting via chat or making phone calls. I would say there are two good things that you can use. One of them is Signal. Of course, there's WhatsApp, but if you want, as HRDs, I would recommend, or rather, I would suggest that you consider Signal, which is actually exactly like WhatsApp, but more secure. So how more secure would require us to sit in a class, and then I would switch for maybe 30 minutes or 1 hour. But for now, because you don't have that time, I'll just tell you it is secure, and then you can trust me. With Signal, you can use it for chat, like WhatsApp, what you send it chat messages. You can have groups, you can, have, and then, of course, in addition to that, it is very good for calls, especially one-on-one calls. You can, at the moment, the group calls has been promised, but I haven't seen it yet unless it was done yesterday. So group calls are there. Will probably come later, but at the moment it's very good for one-on-one calls. Then of course there's Wire. Wire is also another application. The thing with Signal at the moment still has requires you to have your phone number as part of the account. I think those who have used it, they know that. But Wire, you don't need to use your phone number. You can have an email address only, so that you don't need to link your communication that is happening securely on Wire with what is happening unsecurely on your calls as just regular GSM calls and the SMS. So that's a good bit about Wire, and also you can have a group call. So it's an advantage to over Signal because you can have a group, you can call in a group. The calls actually the other issue with Wire is that actually the negative issue with Wire is that after a certain number of people, the call quality deteriorates considerably. So you need to another thing for that. So, and that's where I usually recommend or suggest that you consider something called Jitsi Meet. I will type it on the chat later when I'm done talking. Jitsi Meet is is like what we are having here. It's like Zoom, but more secure. Okay? There's no Jitsi bombing, but there's Zoom bombing. Have you heard of Zoom bombing? Yeah, I think you should search on that. And for such, I recommend DuckDuckGo, not Google. Google will store a lot of your information, but DuckDuckGo does not. So Zoom is not very good in terms of security at the moment, but we can use it for such meetings. That it has an advantage of a Jitsi in that it allows us to have so many people in the same Zoom meeting, and the quality of the call is still good, but in terms of security, it is still needs a lot of work, and I think they are working on that. So we hope they will solve it. But Jitsi Meet is something you can use for your team meetings. If you work as a team, if you're working as an organization, you can use Jitsi Meet. If you're meeting maybe 6-10 people, it's very good. It will work perfectly, and you don't need to download anything. You can use your browser, but it's advisable that you use it with Chrome. to access with Chrome from experience at Protection International. Then you can do your conference calls, you can do webinars like this one. If you want to, if you limit the number of people at the moment, it works. And then, of course, if you don't need maybe breakout groups or whatever, you will be fine. I recommend this. Apart from that, chat and call, you can also do secure email. Usually for me, it's at the moment, given the situation that we are in, and they're not wanting to burden anyone with a lot of investments, excuse me, you can just use your existing email address. Of course, having improved your password to a stronger password. We will put some guidelines on passwords on the chat, and then we can perhaps Gloria will have a resource place where we can upload our resources, and then we can share the links. Use your current email with a good password, two-factor authentication, and then use something called Mail Envelope. It can be an extension on your browser, Mail Envelope, and that one works with key pair. You share encryption keys so that email sent from you to a person who you have shared your key with is encrypted, and then only they can read that email, and only you can read the email that is sent to you when it is encrypted. So that's something that's very easy to do. Another thing, another solution is Proton Mail, which also requires its own time to work with, but it's very straightforward. But with Proton Mail, you need to create an email account with Proton Mail. So it's different from using Mailvelope, where you can use your existing email address, but with it will help you create your key pairs, encryption keys, so that you can exchange with each other. But with the Proton Mail, it will do all that for you, but you need to create an email address at Proton Mail. So yeah, so mostly that's the basic thing. Why we need to communicate securely, and the kind of things that have made us want to communicate securely now that we're in the middle of a pandemic with very strong action from authorities requiring restricting most of our movements, and with that coming with the targeted attacks on human rights defenders, including in the digital space. And then the things we can consider when we are looking for solutions, and maybe what are the examples, or rather, what are the current easy to access solutions that we can get into, and how can we apply them. So if you have questions, you will again put them in the Q&A, and then we can respond to them. Gloria.
Wow, thank you very much, Sam, for those insightful tools that we can use during this period. Some of them, yes, we are using currently, and I know some maybe we might have avoided, but maybe it is time for us to use. The question on Zoom is coming up a lot. I can see it on the chat box. We shall definitely tackle it, and hopefully by the end of this webinar, we shall have agreed on the best platform for us to use. And I know there are several things that we'll need to put into consideration, the cost, what about the internet usage, and those kind of things. I can see my colleague is doing a very good job on the chat side. She's trying to put together some of the tips that are being shared. So kindly, if there is anything that maybe you did not get quite clearly, you can go to the chat box right now and get to read through, and of course throw a question or two so that we can all benefit from that. Right now, I'm going to let Cecilia Maundu take us through very basic physical security and what it means right now. Now that people are working from home, what are the minimum basics that we should put into consideration in terms of physical security, those that we need not to ignore, and those that we must ensure that we put an effort to ensure that we focus on. And then right after that, we shall go into the Q&A. We shall start by responding to the questions that are already on the chat box. And of course, if there's anybody who might not be in a position to type the question, but they have a question, we shall also give you that opportunity. So Cecilia, karibu, take us through.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Gloria introduced you, I'm Cecilia Maundu, digital security trainer. So I'm going to bring in the aspect of physical protection, just as the same thing we tell journalists every day, no story is worth your life. And physical protection, the same as digital security, is beyond important. You have to be physically fit to be able to protect your digital information. So before the pandemic, the word remote was just did not exist in so many people's mouth, but nowadays we know everyone is trying to work remotely as a safety measure. Anyway, so I'll go into it, physical protection, and remember there is no one size fits all solution. So these are just tips on how to protect yourself physically. The first place is when you're working from the house as a human rights defender, make sure that the room you're working in is more safer in terms of it's more private. For example, maybe if you have a basement, that would be the best place to work in, a place whereby people cannot be able to listen to your conversation or even go through your information, especially if you live in a house where there are a lot of people, like most of us do. Try also not to leave your work all around the house, your USB, your documents. Try to do what we keep a clean desk policy, and also find a way of destroying information that you don't need, like maybe shredding or even burning now that you're at home. And in case you share accommodation with people, it is also good to let them know, like if you're a human rights defender, it is good to let them know the risks that you as a person are in so that they can be able to also try and protect you in many ways. Also, try and have emergency numbers, stick them somewhere you can see them so that in case of anything, you can be able to call someone. Also have an exit plan. It can be simple as putting a ladder behind your house and climbing over in case people come. And also have a bag ready, just in case of anything, you have an evacuation bag and you get out with it. Another thing is maybe you're having a sensitive, now that we're working from home, maybe you've planned a very sensitive meeting, in-person meeting. If those people are coming to your house, maybe they're using Uber, the best place is let them not come directly to your house, maybe drop a few blocks away from your house, so that because most of this taxi, the GPS are on. And also try and making sure that you have a cover-up story. You don't have to tell everyone this is a sensitive meeting. You can just say we are coming to have something, have a cover-up story. Another thing is always make sure your doors are closed, and in case someone knocks the door, you have to know who is coming to your house. Some of these human rights defenders are fighting things like police brutality, and you're at more risk. So make sure that if someone is coming to your house, you know who is knocking your door, and before you open. And also another thing, if you live with people, not everyone who comes to your house should be able to have access to you. You can just say you are not at home. And also avoid regular routines. Do not use the same route every day. Try not to be too obvious. Maybe you leave the house at 8, or maybe you take your walk at 4 p.m. Try and not to be so routine, because that is one of the things that people are praying to you look for. And also try and make sure that it's not all the time that you're working. Try and keep your sanity safe. Emotional well-being marries very well with physical being. So try and keep yourself sane, because this situation will come to an end, and you don't want to have a burnout by the time it comes to an end. Also, in case you are at a very sensitive, what do I say? You're at a great risk. Try and relocate. You don't have to be in the same place. You can either decide to move houses or maybe go and live with some people for a while, so that you can also try and be safe. In case you are ordering food from these apps, just know, as I said before, they have GPS, so you have to be very careful. I would always ask, is it necessary for you to order food? And also in terms of maybe you live in a small house and you are a few of you, or quite a number of you, it is always important, in case it's possible, not to share your devices as the ones who are before me did. And in case you're sharing devices because maybe you can't help it, you can also try and make sure that every time you finish with that device, you've reduced every trace that you are using that device before. Yeah, I think that is what I have. The only thing I would want to add is about your emotional being. Try and manage your anxiety, because at this time, anxiety levels are are very high on different people, and especially the HRDs. So one way to manage your anxiety, please try and not watch too much coronavirus news, as in whatever you know is more than enough. And also, there's something that I would like to add that Mark was talking about, that is Wi-Fi. Protect your Wi-Fi in terms of, do not use your name. Like if I'm Cecilia, I don't have to, my Wi-Fi does not have to be called Cecilia. I can say like, it's never that serious. That is my Wi-Fi name. So try not to be too obvious, and also try and change your password frequently, especially now that we are in the house. And then also make sure you're comfortable where you work. You're very comfortable. Take care of your back. I know it's not easy because some of us don't have home office, but try as much as possible, wherever you're working, your back is safe. Yes, I think that's it, Gloria, unless someone else has something to add.
Thank you very much, Cecilia, for the tips on how to ensure that we keep ourselves physically fit. And I like the fact that you have brought in our emotional and social well-being. Right now, the pandemic is taking a toll on everybody. Having to change things that you have been working, the things that you have been doing normally, now you have to adopt into something else is quite difficult. And of course, it will take a toll on you, be it physically, be it emotionally. And we also know people are suffering financially. So it is good to ensure that you put yourself in the right frame of mind. And as Cecilia has mentioned a number of things, and another thing that you can put into consideration is just your own physical well-being. Take a walk. You don't have to sit all day working. Take a walk. Do gardening, something that will move you from the disastrous situation that we are in. If you may allow me, if the participants may allow me, we can now go straight into the questions that have been asked. And as I indicated, we shall start with the questions that are on the chat box, after which we shall open it up for plenary. Not necessarily questions. If you just have an addition that you feel is important to share with the participants, we would love to hear from you, because we learn daily from people. So the first question is from Alice, and she asks, how often should I update the Wi-Fi password for security purposes? I will request Sam to take that one. Sam?
Yeah, I usually don't have like a fixed kind of time, but I don't think it's a good practice to have, since you moved into that house, since you installed that Wi-Fi in your house, maybe it's been 5 years or 3 years, and you're still using the same password. I don't think that's right. It is, I would say, usually passwords should be changed. In the ideal situation, all passwords, your email password or whatever password, should go away. Maybe after 90 days, you should actually update them. If they are not extremely impossible or difficult to guess. Then, but I don't know, your Wi-Fi, I don't think you should keep it for more than 6 months or 4 months, actually. I think, yeah, just change it as regularly as possible. And then if you are aware, if you retain awareness of, okay, I've given this password out. Sometimes you will feel, I've given this password out too many times. So it can be, maybe you had 15 guests over the week, with social distances and limiting groups. Maybe there were 3 people yesterday. Tomorrow you had 5, you have 5, like that. And then eventually, cumulatively, that week you have had 15 visitors. Then 15 people have your Wi-Fi password. Then it's time to change it, even if you had changed it last week. So it's all relative, but ideally you should change all your password at least every 3 months. Ideally.
Thank you. So ideally, change your passwords as often. For the Wi-Fi password, advisable. If you feel like you have shared it enough times, change as soon as possible. But the password should not go more than 3 months. Hi, Vincent, I can see you. And you ask, in light of the increased online engagement, is Zoom platform safe? Mark, I would request that you take us through that one.
Yeah, thank you, Gloria. And I think Sam had elaborated on Zoom. So Zoom is a very easy platform to use. It's a platform that people have been using on and off, but has become very important ever since lockdown began. So basically, Zoom provides a basic connection that we call transport layer security. Basically, it provides HTTPS, but where the problem came from is that in their documentation, they had said that they actually provide end-to-end encryption, like what WhatsApp and Signal provides. So some researchers were able to find out that they were actually not providing end-to-end encryption, but just HTTPS connections. So basically, for a normal person who is not concerned about Zoom accessing details about your calls, it should be a service that you should be easily used because it's very scalable. You can have, on a free account, you can have 100 participants on a call. Actually, schools are taking advantage of this and they're using Zoom all the time. The only caution that I have is that people have learned how to photo boom or come into meetings where they have not been invited. So that is the only challenge. But if you're not concerned about Zoom accessing details about your meetings, because basically what an HTTPS connection does, it gives you a secure connection from your laptops to their servers. And for some human rights defenders, they feel that is too, that is giving away a lot of privacy. But if Zoom is not a threat to you, then Zoom should be fine. What you need to make sure is that you protect the link for your Zoom meetings. Because if you share your Zoom meeting on social media, anyone who accesses that link is able to join the call. So how do you protect that? Set a password for your Zoom meetings. The other thing is that you should control what participants are able to do in the call. So people have been able to get into meetings and not invited and then start showing funny things in these meetings just because the people that are setting up did not control what participants can do. So for example, you can control who can share their screens. You can make sure that you have control of you're able to kick out people who are not invited. I think if you take some of these precautions, Zoom should be really a tool that you can use well in this time. But it's not yet providing end-to-end encryption, though it provides transport layer security or HTTPS.
Thank you, Mark. And also, just as an addition, when Sam was making his presentation, he also gave us other options that we have. Jitsi Meet, which you do not necessarily have to download. You can just take it from Chrome. And other safe places where we can discuss audio is Signal, which offers end-to-end encryption and a higher level of security than that of WhatsApp that we are used to.
Gloria,
Yes,
Gloria?
yes, Sam.
Just to add on the issue of Zoom, is that Mark has put it very well. You can use it for anything that is quite open. It's not high risk. But for your team meetings, you can use Jitsi Meet. It will be because your team meetings will usually be a small team. You're not going to have 100 people in your team meetings. It's highly unlikely for the organizations that we work with. So for small meetings, just use Jitsi. It will work very well. For, let's say, if you want to have seminars or trainings, then you will have probably no option but to use Zoom because it's very easy. Everybody knows about it and everybody can use it. But together as a team, when you're discussing internal things, it's best that we go that extra step of end-to-end encryption that is provided by Jitsi.
Yeah. Thank you.
Gloria, let me add something.
Yep.
Just to everyone who's listening to us, just know you can never be 100% secure. There's always a risk margin. And also it depends on the kind of meeting you have. I think one advantage that Zoom has is just the user interface is very easy, but I would go with what Sam is saying. GST would be the best. It's more reliable than Zoom, but you can never be 100%. You can change your password 1,000 times. You can use, I don't know, something out of the moon, but there's always a risk margin. So always keep that in mind.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Cecilia, for that. I can see Emily joining us from Mombasa. Hi, Emily. Emily wants to know how does she know that her phone is tapped? And she goes ahead and asks, is it the echo during the calls? Ahmed, can you please speak that for us?
Thank you, Gloria. Just to add for the Zoom conversation, I want to highlight there's another application called WebEx, which was provided by Cisco. As we know, Zoom has provided only for encryption on video, voice streaming only, but WebEx has an end-to-end to encryption, both video and voice, for the purpose of if you have an internal meeting for your organization or you're talking about a sensitive communication, it's better to use a WebEx, which is a secure platform also on conferencing platform. If I come back for this question about how do I know if my phone was tapped, there is really several ways or signs that suggest your phone is being tracked and tapped or monitored in some way. One of the indication is unusual sound during calls. If there is a clicking sound like you hear and distant voice coming through your phone during conversation, it could be a sign that you've been snooped on. That's the one indication. The other one is maybe the also decreased battery capacity. This indication maybe some phones, when they tap, it's reduced battery performance. If mobile phone is tapped, or it's because it's recording your activity and transmitting them to third part, this leaves also a footprint in the form of increasing battery usage, and also as a result of battery loses its life faster. So if you have seen this battery goes down or the capacity of battery is decreasing, also is another indication, maybe your phone is tapped. The other indication is also sometimes the phone shows you activities when it's not used. Sometimes it's if your phone makes a noise like lighting up, it's the screen when you are not in use it. Maybe this also it's possible that someone has a remote access to your device. I think the other indication also is receiving unusual text. sometimes when your phone is tapped or monitoring, because you receive strange text messages containing random numbers, also symbols or characters which you don't know. This means the remote control feature of your the people who are monitoring or tabbing the user software, spy software works by sending a secret code text message to your phone. So if you see this unusual text messaging or strange messaging, this is a very clear indication, shows you this phone has been tapped or monitoring in other way. I think also maybe the last one is increase data usage. Some of our softwares or application or spy files, or when they have already installed in your phones, they may use more data usage on your phone because the extra data they send in the information collecting from your phone, they may use more data usage. So this is an indication, several indications, which if you see, you need to better stand up and then look for support or technical support from the technologists or ITs people to support you. And some ways you can protect your tabbing from is first you need, before there's two things. One is pre-protection, before the tapping is happen, and after. Before, you need to have first, as Mark and as mentioned, you need to first upgrade your operating system on your phone or other devices. Also, you make sure you have your antivirus using VPN, and you have to avoid clicking malware emails or any other indication or mail or other links like you don't know if you receive from email. The other thing is you need to do is you make sure you have a HTTPS. You visit only a website which has a HTTPS certificate, which is a secure communication when you're browsing your internet. If you're using from your computer or if you're using from your phone, you make sure you have both SSL certificate on your phone, on your computer. Also, you make sure you don't also use application communication, which basically doesn't have encryption end-to-end to encryption features. And some has mentioned Signal, which is the best way where you communicate. I think after, if you notice all these signs I have mentioned, which means your phone is tapped, after that, I think the only way I think is you need to look for technical assistance for the digital security experts to help you to recover your information. And then the other way is some softwares which already has been installed or bugs in your phone is very difficult for you as a to understand or remove that one. So there's a way you can erase and format your phone and then still recover your information. So the technical assistance, digital security expert maybe can recover your information and then also remove these bugs and software which has been installed for your phone. So this is basically for the signs of having if your phone has been tapped.
Okay. Thank you, Ahmed. And I think I will combine the question that you have just responded to with the next one, which I think you have responded to, unless Shadownet feels otherwise. And Shadownet asks, how do I check if my Android device has been compromised? At times, my network indicator goes up 500 kbps, yet I am not downloading anything. Is that a sign that...
Yeah, absolutely. That's the very clear sign, which shows, because I've talked about the increased data usage. That's another sign for if your phone was tapped. And the other way, if you're using an Android phone, what you do is you go on your settings and go to application, there is a way you can look how which files and which application is running currently on your phone. Once you know, if you see some suspicious application on your phone, which doesn't look same as the one you know on your phone, maybe that's a suspicious also. You have
yeah, Gloria, on the phone tapping, when you're using regular phone call, the one you maybe key in your number and call somebody, or you're receiving a call, sometimes you receive a reverse call. Safaricom has allowed us to have reverse calls. But when using a regular, normal day-to-day phone call, that sound that you hear, maybe an echo or anything, or some strange sounding thing, it can be anything really. It can be just your connection is poor. It just could be another echo. I mean, like, it could be just that the network connection is just poor at that moment. But it could also be that there is some sort of middleman there who is intercepting. There could be a middleman, a middle box, or whatever it is. But most of the time, like a lot of the times, that echo or that sound is usually just poor connection, and things are crossing each other, like signals are cross signals. So it's yeah. So don't panic too much when you hear that, but also be cautious because it could be. Don't panic, but be cautious. Panic is bad, and Cecilia has said, if you panic, you're going to make mistakes. If you make mistakes, you have exposed yourself to many risks, both physical and digital security risks. So don't panic. Calm down, think about it, drop the call, start another call.
Great. Thank you. Cecilia, Emily is asking, is it true that hackers can manipulate my laptop camera to record me while I'm working in it? So I should always cover it.
Yeah, that's very possible, and that's why we always say that your laptop camera should always be covered, just in case somebody is trying to fish or even trying to record you, especially right now when there's so many cases of hacking, and in terms of especially women are the ones who are very vulnerable to such issues. And another thing we always say is if necessary, that is if it is really necessary, always try and make sure that when your camera is covered, you only uncover it when you're using it. And most of the time, if I know, we rarely use those cameras on our laptops. Yes.
Thank you. Gift Parsen, I can see you all the way from Narok. His is a comment. He says that WebEx is not as clear as Zoom, and that's why many people prefer it. And unfortunately, WebEx has a tendency of crashing, especially when the users are many. Thank you for those insights. Edward Karibu Sana, we have seen you. Thank you for joining us. John also gives us some piece of advice. He says that we should also be very careful with our email addresses. He has noticed that nowadays he receives several links from unknown sources from his inbox. And I think Mark spoke to that at some point, and Cecilia has just mentioned it. When you receive an email that you're not sure of where it has come from, the best thing to do is not to open it, because you might be opening yourself to other major digital risks that you might not be able to circumvent. Hi, Judy, I can see you. Judy asks, how can she prevent blank text messages from her phone? That one I will let any of my colleagues speak it up. Judy asks, how can she prevent getting blank text messages? I think she receives blank text messages from people. Any of my colleagues can take it up?
It's very difficult to really, and I think I'll also let Mark jump in at some point. It's difficult to know why you are getting blank messages. Probably a better thing is to maybe somebody to analyze, to look at your phone or your contacts. Maybe somebody is doing it by mistake. Sometimes maybe you, there's sometimes, you receive phone calls from strange numbers, and then when you pick them, nothing is spoken. I mean, sometimes those can be just collecting contacts or something. There's a lot of activity, a lot of hacking activity going on that is, and every day is a new thing. So it can mean anything. And it's difficult to know why, but I think also my colleagues can also jump in. Yeah.
I think I would propose, Judy, maybe you talk to your service provider, just try to, and especially if you have the number that is sending the blank text messages, just for you to bring it to their attention so that maybe they can tell you what is happening, and maybe give you some insights to it. Did I hear someone want to respond again?
Yeah, I wanted to say something about that. That's very peculiar, receiving blank messages. It would be interesting to know which number is sending the messages, because usually when we sign up to use Safaricom or Airtel, we are kind of giving away the ability for us to receive messages from people selling things. That's why you receive ads that you have not solicited. So it might be one of those things, like some company that has been sold your phone is trying to market something to you, but they forgot to write the message in there. But the easiest thing to do there would be to call the service provider and try to find out why you're getting that message from that phone. And actually, I wanted to speak a bit more about the email bit that John just talked about. Right now, the easiest way for people, organizations, individuals, and networks to be hacked is through emails, because everyone is trying to find information about COVID-19. What are the latest statistics? What are the dashboards? There's information about cures here and there. Because so many people have lost jobs, there's a lot of information about jobs, or people might pretend to be from your organization telling you something about your job. So many emails coming into our inboxes, and people are trying to use the panic and the uncertainty to get people to click on links so that they can steal your login information or force you to download malware onto your computer. So we need to be very vigilant around this time to make sure that you don't click on links that you do not know, don't download documents or PDFs, or don't click on links, or don't accept links telling you to change your password, because people are phishing for passwords for credit cards. Someone might pretend to be from Jumia and then ask you for your credit card. We need to really be vigilant, because this is the easiest way. And I think 99% of people being hacked around now is through phishing emails and links. Back to you, Gloria.
Thank you, Mark.
Gloria, allow me to. Okay, allow me to add something. So there's someone who asked about the camera to the laptop, which is good, and we do everything possible to secure laptops. But also nowadays we have something called smart TVs. I'm sure most of you have them in your house. In your houses, some of them have cameras. So also that is one way that hackers are really using to be able to phish information. Those smart TVs are under what we call Internet of Things. So, and most of them are just trying to know maybe the programs that you're watching. Some of them even hackers take control and you start seeing inappropriate things on TV, especially if you have children. So also those are some of the things that we need to put in consideration, those gadgets that we have at home that we are not even thinking about because our minds are on our laptops and our phones.
Oh, Thank you
you.
for that, Cecilia. Then Ochieng, I can see you and you are asking some. Can you please help the team on how they can protect images or videos, specifically when someone has been violated or abused? Sam, that is directly to you.
Yeah, depending on what you want to do with the photos or the videos that you're talking about, do you want these videos to be available to a certain group, let's say prosecutor in court, or do you want it to be available, let's say, as evidence, or do you want it not to be available on social media? Do you want it not to identify any of the participants of the subjects in that particular video? So there are many things to consider, but ideally you can actually, there are many ways of let's say, one of the things that identifies photos, if you don't want the photos to be identified, maybe who is there, or if they cannot know that by face, if you mean like where this photo was taken or anything, you can remove the metadata. This is identifying information that is attached to each photo you take. So it has the camera which took it, it identifies that camera, the aperture, the location it was taken, the time it was taken. So you can remove this if you don't want that particular information. But if you need that information, for instance, to provide as evidence, then there are also like applications that you can use to preserve this particular metadata. And importantly, I don't know, these you can actually, I'm actually forgetting that application. It's a mobile phone application that you can actually hide those photos so that they are not available in your gallery. And I will type it here because I'll get it. I'll type it on the chat. You can hide those photos so that even if your camera, your phone, for instance, if you're using a phone to take photos, is confiscated, they will not be able to find those photos because they are hidden and behind a password that you will have created for that. So you can actually hide those photos inside your phone and nobody will know that they are there unless they know that you have hidden phones. The photos, which is now no longer a digital security problem. It's a physical security problem, which means that they can beat you up and you have to give up you have to produce the photos anyway. So you can hide photos. Yeah, I don't know if any one of you remembers quickly, the panelists remember quickly can say it.
I want to mention that application. There is one application which I know, basically, which you can hide your photos and videos on your phone. It's called Secret Calculator. That is Android, which you basically, it looks like it has a user face of a calculator. People, even when you give them your phone to someone, people they think maybe this is a calculator application, but basically it is the application which keeps you all your photos and videos in hidden place.
Thank you, Ahmed. Could you please type the name of the application there? And then is it found on Android and iOS or only Android? Maybe you can.
Okay.
On Android, yeah? Okay, and then Ahmed, this is for you, though maybe you might have...
Just a minute. Yes. The application that I think I've been sharing with in trainings is called ObscuraCam. ObscuraCam is also, you can hide the face of somebody. You can even hide the entire photos. And it's an application available in the Google App Store. And I will put the link right now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Proceed.
And then Ahmed, Donation wants to know, are there any commands that you can use to check if your phone is, I think he wanted to say tapped.
Okay. Yeah, I think he want to say tapped. Yeah, but I think for this question, probably on your phone, There's a software application which you can look and see if your phone was tapped, but not through your phone, but through your computer. Some softwares which can allow for you, but basically for right now, I think there's no specific command which I can tell you, which you can look for it and know if your phone was tapped. But I will share with you links and resources which you can which can guide you for to check if there is another command which you can use basically.
Okay, thank you. And then Donation also says Camera V is also an application that we can use. Okay. Ruth indicates that it's always recommended to have the webcam cover and on because you never know who and when who is looking at them. Gift, I can see you. You are also giving us caution on the secret apps. Most of them are not safe. Thank you for that. I can see we are running out of time and we are yet to tackle around 3 questions. So colleagues, when you respond, please keep it brief. An anonymous participant asks, how can I reset my hacked email and what can I do to save my documents? And then Josephine also asks, what efforts have been made to digitally empower persons with disability, e.g. persons with hearing impairment, persons with visual, who are visually impaired. So colleagues, those are 2 questions. Who would want to take us through? How you can reset emails, and then the other one, what mechanisms have been put in place to digitally.
Maybe Mark wants to go. Mark, please.
Yeah, I can talk about the email part. The email part. So for you to be able to recover an email that has been hijacked depends on what recovery mechanisms you had set in the email before the email was hacked. So usually when you sign up for an email, they ask you to either use your phone or include an email that can use to recover the account if anything goes wrong with it. So basically, if you set up an email or a recovery account, you can just go to the browser, go to that email, and then put in your username and say, I forgot my password. So they'll usually send a link for you to reset the password in the email that you sent, or they can send a code to your phone that you can use to prove that you're the owner of the email. I didn't understand the part of the documents. The question about saving.
Yeah. I don't know. Before you ask the issue about the document, I also wanted to mention sometimes when you lose your email address, somebody means that if that person knows what they are doing, they'll probably go into your recovery options and change all your recovery options. So every time you say, I forgot my password, it sends to their alternative email and not your alternative email. And this is why it's very, very important for you to already set up two-factor authentication in your email. And don't use email addresses or email services that do not give you the option of two-factor. Because with two-factor, the minute that person or multi-factor or multi-step, the minute that person types in your email into something else that is not your computer or your phone, you will be alerted on your phone most of the time. So okay. Two-factor prevention is the best way to avoid losing your email. If they have already, you did not have two-factor, they have already recovered changed your recovery options in that email, you cannot recover that email. It's as bad as that.
Thank you for that, Sam. Anonymous, I hope you have been answered. There's a question about the efforts that have been made to digitally empower persons with disabilities. Any takers on that? Clearly.
I don't know if there's any specific. I do not know. It's best that we answer this question because it has been asked, and I do not know of anything that is specific to visually impaired, for instance. But I know that special groups are considered in all this because. But I do not know much about visually impaired in terms of digital security solutions at this moment.
Okay. Josephine, thank you for your question.
I can say one thing.
Yes, Mark?
So, of course, there is a lot of development in that direction, which I might not know everything about. But one thing, for example, smart devices. People can now use the internet using Siri or Google Voice, smart voice recognition. You can ask Google for anything and it will give you the information, even if you're not typing or seeing. So you can just use your voice to interact with the internet. So yeah, there are developments like that that can enable people who are visually impaired to use the internet.
Okay. Thank you. Josephine, what that clearly means is that, of course, we shall need to put our energies and refocus on your question and just try to see if there have been any work that has been done around that. And if so, we try and put something together that we can share. I can see on the chat box there are a lot of information that has been shared by the panelists. Kindly use the chat box to for your own knowledge. We have links there that we can download for apps that can support our work. Alice, again, I can see you had asked 2 questions which have been responded to by Cecilia. And I would kindly request that I take 1 round of questions, comments. I can see we are only left with 7 minutes. So if there's anybody who has a comment, a question that you feel needs to be answered before we leave, I'm looking at the hands that are up.
Just I could respond to something that's already caught my attention, being a parent. Grace Lolim has asked whether it is safe for students to learn right now. And I think the safety of our children is actually more dependent on us knowing how to secure the devices that they use for learning, because we are learning through Zoom most of the time. Our students, the students are learning from Zoom. So just secure the devices and then give them good guidance in terms of online interactions, because there are a lot of people out there who are really not good people, or they want to take advantage of the situation to get into your spaces. And again, it's all about precaution, taking caution, and being in control of how students actually access the online learning, and discussing how the teachers themselves can be in control during the learning. It's all about behavior right now. We can't say they are not unsafe. They are in good hands of the teachers, but we need to also educate the teachers.
Okay, thank you, Vincent. We take note of your comment. Anybody who has something that is really burning?
I have seen Naomi was raising the hand. Naomi.
Okay. Naomi. Is she on mute? You unmute her.
She needs to unmute herself.
Yeah, Obino.
Okay, anybody else with their hands up as we wait for Naomi?
She can talk now.
Okay. Naomi, go ahead. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else whose hand is up?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Okay. I was saying maybe you can share with us the notes because some of us had problem with internet connectivity, so we were not able to get all the presentations.
Okay. Okay, Naomi, that is noted. My colleague Ahmed will get most of the discussions from the panelists and package them. And because we all registered, we will receive the notes. Right, Ahmed?
Yes.
Yeah. So Naomi, you will be sorted. I'm so sorry for the internet connection, but thank you for trying to be with us.
I think Gift want to speak. Gift.
Gift?
Yeah, I was to raise that question because I almost got into the meeting while it was a little bit, it had gone a little bit further. And want to thank the team. That was an awesome presentation, and we need to be organizing such things on a frequent basis because every other day technology is changing and new things are coming up. So we need to be heads up with everything. It was an awesome panel, and thanks to everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, Gift. We also recognize your input. We really appreciate, and that is well noted. We shall see how to move the process forward. Ahmed, anybody else that?
I would like to talk about the question that Josephine asked about visually impaired people. I know I have some information somewhere and I can try and send it to you people so that you can put it in the group. There was an app which was being developed and I think now it's done, something like that, but I'm not very sure. But I will try and get the info because I know I have it somewhere and then I send it to you people.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Just to add to that, I think this is something that I think the Defenders Coalition needs to look into to address the issue of visually impaired and other special needs persons, so that at least maybe this is a space that you could pioneer in the coming days, Gloria.
Okay, thank you. That is well noted. Josephine, we have I have noted your comment or advice. We also need to protect our homes during video conferencing. One can fix a background, so people should embrace this feature available on Zoom. Thank you very much for that. And because time has really gone and we are left with 1 minute, I will take this opportunity just to say thank you very much for everybody who took the time to join this webinar this afternoon. We hope that it has brought some insights into our work, and moving forward, we shall get to use 1 or 2 or 3 things that have been shared. My colleague Ahmed will share with us all the information that the panelists have been sharing with us, and also more information that we feel maybe we might not have explored to the full. This is a conversation that will be ongoing. It is not ending today. Today is just a start, and we hope that in future webinars, you will be able to join us. And also kindly feel free to let us know before time what topics of discussion that you will love tackled, so that we can be able to prepare well and get everybody on board and learn from each other. To the panelists, I say thank you very much for your time, for your insights, and I hope we are going to do this again. For all the participants, I can see you, I can see you, I can feel you, and ninasema asanti. keep safe and stay safe. I will not say stay home, but keep safe and stay safe. Until next time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us, Gloria.
Thank you. Thank you, Gloria. And thank you to all participants.
Thank you so much for having us also.
Thank you so much for all your participants.
Thank you. Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you, Gloria.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you, Gloria.
Thank you, Liam.
Thank you.
Santeni.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, all of you. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Ahmed.
Thank you, Senguer Kim. I see. Joseph.
Oh, Josephine. Thank you. Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you. Ruth.